Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. It's been a while. It's been a hot minute. I'm sorry for that. I couldn't get into the game. There was multiple issues for me when 4.0 launched. Hangars not opening, not being able to log in, falling through floors, getting killed by trams. You know, all the fun stuff that we love about Star Citizen. So I apologize. This video has taken a lot, and I mean a lot of time and effort to get together. It is a bit of a long one, guys, but I do have quite a lot of thoughts on this ship. It is an awesome ship and a well overdue review. I've got a lot of catching up to do, so thank you for your patience first and foremost. Now, the RSI Polaris then. The first dedicated combat vessel in a capital ship size. There's a lot to talk about. Some pros, some cons, but I am genuinely looking forward to sharing my thoughts with you on this one because it is without a doubt a epic ship. I think the potential for the Polaris is massive. I really do think that. There are some issues with the ship that we will cover later on. But overall, the consensus is it's a good ship, right? You know, we've been waiting for this ship for a very, very, very long time. Now, it is obviously an expensive ship too. So $975, I think, off the top of my head. So pretty pricey, which is why this video is going to be just quite long, because I kind of feel like I have to give it justice, and if someone to purchase this, then it's up to me really to do my best. Not perfection, but the best that I can do, and this is where we're at. So let's begin then our journey with the RSI Polaris. So we'll kick things off with just some early concept images. Now, all we had to go on for numerous years was the concept of the Polaris, and since then things have changed on it. It grew in size, the hangar grew, you know, turrets got added, PDCs got added, point defense cannons, all of these really cool things. And then when we first clapped eyes on it, I think it was at IAE, it was unpolished, as you can see in this particular clip, and originally I saw it and I was like, it doesn't, you know, it just, there's something, it's not clicking. What's going on? It's a very important ship for morale of the players and for morale CIG to see what they're able to push out in a competent state like they always do. Their attention to detail is phenomenal most of the time. So when I first clapped eyes on it, I was very sort of, it's not, where's the wow factor? I'm not feeling it. Anywho's, the ship arrives. It arrives in the PTU. We couldn't get into the captain's quarters. Now, I don't tend to record anything in the PTU because nothing is ever finished there. And this is a proven point with this particular ship, because it was only when it came to live that we got the captain's quarters. And it was only then that it received multiple polished passes. So I always wait for the ship to go live for those particular reasons, because it shows the ship in its best light. So that was my sort of patience before 4.0 and everything went downhill rather rapidly. So what we have now is the complete ship. I still think there is work to be done. We will cover that. But overall, my God, what can we expect with some of the other ships coming? Because this ship is fantastic in some ways, not so much in others, but yeah, we got a lot to talk about. So here is my review of the RSI Polaris.
Wish I could wear peace like this shirt on my back, then give it away whenever somebody asks. Every time I try, I catch myself reaching for it from someone else. Why is it so hard to hold on to? Maybe I'm obsessed with a hurried rush. Whenever I slow down, I beat myself up. So much time worrying what could be or what I might have been, second guessing every move I make. I wanna trust myself, love myself, believe in my find a way to feel the heat again, but I don't know where to begin. Oh, I wanna trust myself, love myself, believe in myself like I used to. I wanna trust myself, be enough for myself, ring my own bell like I used to. I'm gonna trust myself. Oh, oh, I'm gonna love myself. I'm gonna trust myself, love myself, believe in myself like I used to. I'm gonna trust myself, be enough for myself, ring my own bell like I used to. Oh, oh,
Okay, so we're going to start with the obvious. We'll start with the outside, then we'll move to the interior, then we'll move to the tour. So let's begin with the exterior details. Now, for me personally, since it's had its polish passes and various upgrades with the PDCs, etc., I do think it has come on leaps and bounds on some of the exterior detail. There is no denying that it is an extremely unique shape, and I think how CIG have put this ship together with a hangar is actually quite impressive. 6 engines at the back, very, very cool. The rear of the ship kind of reminds me of those old school Cadillacs, so I kind of like that, right? There's no doubt that this ship is very much shaped like an arrow, okay? It just cannot be avoided. But if you take closer looks at the exterior, which we will do, you will see that a lot of work has really gone into making this ship look extremely sci-fi and extremely detailed, and it's very, very cool. Not to mention, the ship itself is dripping, literally dripping, in all of the turrets you could possibly ever need to quell any threat in your particular space region. It is absolutely armed to the teeth. However, I will say that I have soloed this ship, and yeah, it's not the easiest thing in the world. It really is very, very difficult to operate the ship, especially as the torpedoes are fired by a weapons officer and it's in a different area of the ship. Nevertheless, I think a fully crewed Polaris is something to fear. And that shape that it carries, it looks aggressive, okay? It has like these weird sort of space fins, if we can call them that, dripping off each starboard and port side towards the rear of the ship. I think that's really cool. Probably to help with atmospheric flight, although I can't see them helping all that much. They're not exactly the biggest of flight surfaces for a ship of this size, but I think it just uses its sheer thruster power to sort of bully its way through the atmosphere rather than elegantly grace through it, would be my sort of opinion of that. So the unique shape, yes, it does look like an arrow. It does have some cool antenna, and it does have tons of missiles as well, you know, dripping either side of the cockpit glass. It does look poised for combat, and I think it's a very unique looking ship, not sort of traditional in the sense that you would find like take the Perseus, is very sort of modern day naval warfare boat like, if you know what I mean. This looks completely different. Thrusters at the front look amazing. I think the engines look absolutely superb. I'm a sucker for that because it adds to that sci-fi sort of immersion. So there's a lot going externally. I haven't seen any of the paints for this ship, if there are any. Just not paid attention to it. I imagine there will be, and I think there's a lot of detail that could still be brought out here, to be honest. Like the panel lines, you know, I think a bit more contrast on the outer hull of this ship, and it would look even more glorious than it is now, because I think the exterior is probably the best part about the Polaris, because it's big, poised for combat, dripping in weaponry, absolutely a behemoth to behold. When you see one fly past you and you're in like your Avenger Titan, you do realise the size of the ship. It does creep up on you. As you can see here, 6 engines. They all look fantastic with the burners on, burners off. They really add to that sort of sci-fi immersion, which is why I enjoy these types of games, right? And I think the Polaris does this really well. You can see here PDCs, which are wonderful. They clap everything, you know, it's absolutely brilliant externally. There's a lot of attention to detail that's gone into this exterior of the ship, okay? I have no real complaints about how the ship looks. In fact, no, actually, I'll take that back. If I was to have one complaint, I think the cockpit glass is just a little bit too extended, but midship and towards the rear, I mean, you can see all of these panel lines. They look absolutely fantastic. You know, the detail is there. It really is an epic job they've done on the exterior. I think it's absolutely fantastic, to be quite honest with you. I do think as well that the blue trim is a little bit too subtle, in my opinion. I think it's very sort of washed out, isn't it? From what we're seeing here, in my opinion, you know, a bit more trim somewhere around the ship, I think would help accentuate the shape of it a bit more. But that's just me nitpicking, really, because I'm trying to find fault with the exterior, and it's actually quite hard to do so. Even the underbelly looks incredible, and the way the light bounces off the ship and casts those shadows really does impress upon you just the size of this thing, right? It looks heavy, and I think that's a key selling point for any capital ship, right? We know they are thousands and thousands and thousands upon thousands of kilograms, and they should look heavy, and they've done a really good job making this ship look heavy. So it's very, very impressive to look at externally. I really don't have much to complain about, apart from maybe, like I said, I think the bridge glass, the cockpit glass, overhangs just a little bit. I don't think we needed all of that, but I guess if they shrunk it, it may have looked out of proportion. But detail-wise, yes, very, very cool. And the top is no different. The top of the ship, we got all of the turrets, missile turret at the back there, a PDC, then of course we have the hangar doors, you know, and the engines look empowering, right? They look monstrous by themselves. There are areas of the ship, when you look from the outside, you just think, yes, this is awesome. So this bodes well for Idris owners and any other capital ship that I can't think of right now, because I think if they can keep this standard up, then we really are in for a treat, because we know CIG have been knocking MISC ships out of the park. Star Lancer will be my next ship, by the way. But yes, as you can see, hangar doors, everything, the panels are symmetrical either side. Look, incredible stuff, really impressive. However, if you truly want to get immersed with the Polaris, I think this ship looks its best at nighttime. Absolutely incredible at nighttime, because look at these lights. Absolutely amazing. Now, this is the most immersive I've seen this ship. This, to me, is what sci-fi is, right? You think of any film, deep space and lights on a cool-ass ship, and this is exactly what it is. So, very, very impressed with the lighting array that comes with the Polaris. It looks incredible, especially with the landing lights. Super duper cool. Right, so while we've got it on the ground and we keep pivoting around the ship itself, let's take a look at the specifications. Okay, so it's a length of 166 meters, width 82. Its height landed is 35. but in flight is 46. That's probably back to front, I think. Cargo is 576 SCU. Not massive, but it doesn't need to be. Seats, it has 12. Life support, it has 1 times size 4. Quantum fuel tank, 1 times size 3. Its fuel tanks are 1 times size 3. Stations, 1 pilot seat, 1 co-pilot seat, 1 captain seat, 2 remote turrets, 1 engineering console, 1 torpedo console, and then 5 manned turrets. The manned turrets themselves are 1 manned with 2 size 6, and they are bespoke, i.e. can't be swapped out. 2 manned turrets which with 4 size 4s, 2 manned turrets with 4 size 3s, 1 remote turret with 4 size 3s, 1 remote turret upper back, which is the missile launching turret, and 7 point defense cannons. Missiles, we have 2 bespoke missile racks, 8 times size 3. 4 torpedo launchers, they are at the front, and they are 28 with size 10, which do a lot of damage, but we'll come on to the torpedoes later because they're a little bit controversial at the moment. Shield generators, 1 times size 4. Coolers, size 4. Gravity gen, size 4. Fuel intakes, size 3. The battery, 4 of them, and they are size 3. Computers, we have 2, and they are size 2. Radar is a size 4. Power plant, size 4. Quantum drive, size 3. Jump drive, size 3. And then we have all of our thrusters. So, as you can see from that list, there is just a lot of firepower. Most of it is just ridiculous firepower. Now, I took the ship into the Save Stanton event solo, and I had a good time. And I wasn't really trying. I mean, I completed the event, and the torpedoes weren't working as they should, but as you can see here, I parked directly underneath the Idris and thought, I'm going to see how much I can tank here. And yeah, I was not even worried. First I thought, oh crap, I got to move, I'm going to die. And then I just sat there and I was like, okay, let's see how much punishment this ship can take. And it can take a fair bit of punishment. To be fair though, the Idris is going to be a monster, because if that comes out in the current state that we had to try and kill it, it was emotional trying to take down the Idris. It really was. But I think there are some factors that helped that Idris become extremely tough. But at the time, I was thinking, oh my god, it's an animal. The Polaris can take an absolute pounding for ages before even one of the shields will go down. You've got plenty of time to either run away bravely, as I do. It's always the best option. You don't always have to fight people. Yeah, running away bravely is absolutely fine. But for this one, I was like, I'm just going to see how long I can sit here, take these incoming rounds. This really, just test these shields, see what happens. If I blow up, I blow up. We'll see what happens. And as you can see, just impervious, just shrugging it off. I think it took a long time before my shield eventually dropped and I felt like I had to move the ship. So it was very interesting to see, and it gave me hope and glimmer, because I was like, oh my god, when this game gets to a point when we have orgs and players and their crews navigating these various systems, and these are going to be some epic capital ship fights going on. It's going to be crazy. I'm really looking forward to it. I think there's going to be a lot of fun to be had with these cap ships. The Perseus is coming soon. It's my favourite combat ship. I cannot wait to get in there and have a rummage around. But yeah, this particular scenario just got my imagination flowing. I was like, oh, this is going to be incredible. The battles will be epic. We'll see how they address the torpedoes. I'm sure they will fix it somehow. Anyway, so the ship is dripping in PDCs, 7 of them as well, which is obviously amazing. Now, the first run I did, they weren't working. The second run they were, and they were just targeting anything and everything that was hostile. Sometimes you get friendlies that get mismatched as hostile, and you accidentally shoot a hostile. That's what happened. PDCs just started absolutely obliterating some poor sods, so I had to move the ship. But yeah, watching them in action is very, very good. Size comparison then, after we killed the Idris, I did get the opportunity to park right next to it, and I thought this is a good opportunity to do a little bit of a size up. Who's the Mac Daddy, Polaris or Idris? As you can see, I know the camera angle doesn't obviously give you a true sense of scale here, but they're not too far apart. Obviously, the Idris is a little bit bigger. It has twice the hangar size, roughly, I would say. We have a Star Lancer in there as well, for comparison. And then we have our fighters celebrating our little victory here, because it took forever. But it is interesting, right? Because I didn't think the Polaris was as big as the Idris, but it's not far off at all. I can't wait to see these two ships battling from different orgs in the middle of nowhere. You know, you're just in your, I don't know, Hercules doing your trading run, and all of a sudden you stumble into like this massive fleet battle with a Polaris fighting an Idris with a Perseus, and it's just going to be so awesome to watch. I can't wait. Maybe some hammerheads knocking around, you know, knocking off all the fighters. It's going to be amazing. So, as you can see, it's not far off the Idris at all, and it did grow in size. I just didn't expect it to be quite as close to the Idris. I found that quite interesting, because I'm a nerd like that. So that was really cool to see. Side by side, there really isn't, you know, we're talking meters here. But seeing these two go head to head, player controlled Idris versus player controlled Polaris. That's going to be an awesome fight, like a 1v1. Fully crewed as well. Let's have the Idris fully crewed with its fighters. Let's have the Polaris fully crewed with whatever fighters fit in there. Okay, loads fit in there. Let's have a 1v1 fully crewed. That would be amazing to watch. Imagine stumbling across a massive org battle. I think it'd be incredible. So yes, the Polaris is much bigger than I initially thought. It did certainly grow, and when you compare it to the Idris, it starts to become a bit more of a heavyweight. You know, I kind of thought that the Polaris was going to be fragile, sort of a hit and run ship, but after taking it into the event and just sitting there tanking rounds for days, it kind of swayed my opinion. Now obviously the ships are constantly being balanced. Changes are always going to happen, because when a new ship comes in, it might be stronger than a previous ship, etc. So they have to balance it out. How they do that, I don't know, because they're still struggling with our favourite master modes. RIP master modes. So once they get on top of that, then we will truly see where things are at, and if these ships can indeed be intended for why they were built, so to speak. So very interesting, very cool. In terms of running costs for this ship, now I did expend all my torpedoes, and at the time I think it was something like 500,000, maybe more. I can't quite remember, but I do remember the repair bill for this ship. Even though it wasn't destroyed, I took it back, went to repair it, and it was 750,000 credits. And at that moment, my heart stopped for at least 3 seconds. Because I was like, God damn it, that's expensive. But it's good, because you should, really. These are the giants of the verse, right? They should be quite, not wallet breaking to the point you don't want to use it, but they should be sensible with the costs involved to run them, which is why you need a crew, so that people can chip in, I suppose. And also, you know, I think the player choice of deciding to use those torpedoes, you should have to think about them. You know, you shouldn't just fire them all off, kill whatever you've killed, and then expect to pay 5,000 AUEC. That's ridiculous. They still need to tweak that, in my opinion. Whether or not the Polaris changes, I think, in the future with its armament and how it goes about deploying that, I couldn't tell you. But at the moment, it's pretty pricey. Let's leave it at that. So, landing gear, as you can see, very simple tricycle landing gear. Quite short, it looks like, until you're on the ground and realise how much they tower above you. It really is quite a tall ship on the ground. I think there's been some ships that could have been improved with the landing gear and the height. Like the Corsair originally had larger landing gear, and when we got it, it had short stubby feet, which made that ship a pain in the arse to land anywhere that wasn't on a landing pad, right? I haven't noticed that problem with the Polaris yet, but then I haven't been in it enough as of late to come across those problems. It does have some problems in other areas. Again, we will come on to that when we reach that part of the video, which I think requires some planning in advance to utilize those functions, i.e. the cargo doors, ramps at the side of the ship can make life quite difficult, especially if you're going to a landing area. So pre-planning for your landing, I think, is important. It's not game breaking. I think it's just more of an annoyance. Do you know what I mean? You can't just land and do what you want to do. You actually have to think about where you're going to park, if you can park there, and is there any obstacles in the way and that sort of stuff. But if you're fully crewed, these things will all be taken care of, okay? Because you'll be discussing all this kind of stuff. Well, you should be, at least, to maximise the potential of this ship. As I said, soloing this ship is it's an experience. At the moment, I think there are a lot of Polaris owners, or have the loaner, that are using this as just a very glorified space taxi at the moment, because it has incredible range. You see a lot of these knocking around in Pyro. I haven't been able to explore Pyro at all as much as I would like to. I've been taking the 600i rather than Polaris because it's just too much ship for one man, in my opinion. It is a glorified taxi at the moment for a lot of people. I'm waiting for the day I stumble across a fully crewed one, because I really do feel that a fully crewed Polaris is an absolute weapon. Absolute weapon, and you should probably run for your life if you bump into one of these that is fully crewed. If it's a skeleton crew, maybe 6, 4 at a push, maybe 1 for the torpedo bay, pilot, and maybe 1 top turret gunner and 1 bottom turret gunner, maybe, or both on top, something like that. It's still pretty dangerous, but I think a fully crewed Polaris with torpedoes that work properly is going to be devastating. There's no two ways around it. It's absolutely formidable, I think, with all of its firepower. It does have decent range and fuel tanks and things of this nature, but again, CIG recently came out and made a statement saying that as the game develops, as we get more systems, then the fuel for all ships will be adjusted accordingly, which makes sense. I kind of hoped that they didn't shrink Pyro, but they did, and that annoyed me, because like the whole... You don't play space game to expect shortcuts, in my opinion, alright? That just shouldn't be a thing, so I was a little bit annoyed. And I was annoyed for the Starfarer owners as well, because I think that kind of made that a little bit redundant. I was looking forward to try the refueling economy side of the game. Now it's not as prevalent as I would like, but we'll see with the future systems and what tweaks come to ranges, etc. Like I said, at the moment there's a lot of solo taxi going on with this particular ship, but my oh my, is it a weapon. Quite speedy as well for its size, and in atmosphere doesn't actually handle like a pig. It's actually pretty nice in atmosphere too for its size. For its weight class, at least, it doesn't handle anything as bad as I was expecting. I was kind of expecting the old... If anyone flew the old Reclaimer flight model, which was just an absolute pig, getting anywhere, like 5 meters per second out of microtech. It was awful. That was the kind of experience I was expecting with this ship in atmosphere. It's not like that at all. It's actually very, very nice. But as you can see, I honestly feel the Polaris exterior is exquisite. I think I waffled a bit there, lost my train of thought, but it is what it is. It's exquisite. Okay, externally it's awesome, and I really feel like this ship offers tremendous immersion when it's in the dark and all those lights are on and you feel like you're going off to do some serious shit, you know. That's the vibe I get from the Polaris at night. I think it looks incredible, I really do, and I was very impressed with some of the camera angles and shots of how beautiful this shit this ship looks, excuse my language, when you're out in the verse in dusk, dawn, or at night. It looks incredible. So overall, the Polaris exterior, it has excellent engines. The turrets look really well placed. Maybe there's a few turrets that maybe have some blind spots. I mean, the missile turret is not a big loss in my opinion, but it's good that it's at the back, so if you have any would-be pursuers, you can slingshot some missiles that way. So I do kind of agree with that. There's a bottom turret as well, which, although obstructed by the engines, it's one of those things I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it, you know. Which kind of makes me feel about the Perseus has a turret in a similar position, if they're going to change that or improve it, because that really is blocked by the engine nacelles, and I can't see it being too useful. But we'll see what happens with the Perseus, because apparently it's getting an upgrade, so that will be super cool. So exterior wise, engines look fantastic, all 6 of them. The lights, the panel lines, the contrast, you know, maybe bring the nose in of the Polaris a little bit. Some people like it. I don't mind it. I'm not overly fond of it. Overall, it's just chef's kiss good, right? Externally, I really do feel like they've hit the hammer very hard on the nail. Exterior, very, very good. Totally what I expect from CIG in their attention to detail. So very impressed with that. Right, so that's me jabbering on about the exterior. Let's then take a look at the interior. Okay, here we are inside the mighty Polaris, and we're going to start with the top deck. It's a 2-deck ship. So the top deck, as you can see, straight ahead of us is the hangar. Okay, we'll take a closer look at that in a moment. Now, you might be thinking, why have I taken the time to film some corridors? Now, this is very important, and it's a point that I like to bring up, because these are wide on purpose, and it was designed this way so that they could encompass some FPS combat, and I kind of like that. So for boarding actions or defensive actions, you have time and space to maneuver when in FPS combat. The hangar itself is much bigger than the original concept. It's definitely grown in size. Now, there is a whole multitude of ships that will fit in here. I think there are a few posts with a detailed list. Some are type fits, others you can squeeze in, and others get in very easily. I'm not going to list them all, but trust me, this hangar will accommodate a lot of ships. So you have really very little to worry about there. It's incredibly well detailed in the hangar, I think, with the lights. The only issue I have with the hangar is sort of the lack of color coordination for the doors. Like, I wish there was like different colors for different sides of the ship, you know what I mean? Because I'm not gonna lie, it's like the Drake Caterpillar over again. I did get lost going through the same bloody door, you know, but that's just me being an idiot as usual. But you know, maybe some color-coded doors, so like blue is towards the bridge, red is towards the engineering, you know, something like that. Just a little nitpick, really, because I can't really complain too much. Hangars are opened by a lovely lever. There's other features to be found inside the hangar. We'll cover that when we do our walk around. So the hangar has you covered for most ship operations, that's for certain. Moving on then, we come to the medical room. Okay, with our medical beds. Now, this is, for me, where some of the ship starts to lose that grip of immersion, and how can I say it? It doesn't pull me in, right? When I walked in here, I was like, what? This is not kind of what's going on here. Now, it's not to say that it's awful, because it isn't. But I do think if you look at ships like the Carrack's Med Bay, and you think of the Reclaimer, if any of you have been in Reclaimer, how weathered and lived in and terrifying that ship is, because it is. I don't care what anyone says, I don't like flying that ship solo at all, because you know I'm going to get mauled by xenomorphs. But the weathering, that immersive, lived-in feeling. Now, I know this is a med bay, but look how it's just clinical right? Which is probably the right term. There's nothing in here that makes me think, well, come on, where's the immersion here? Where's the locker with rubber gloves, syringes, medical supplies? You know, little details. It's just incredibly bland in here. This is not one of the best rooms on the ship. Now, I know it's a military ship, so, you know, military ships tend to be very, very clean and stuff like that. However, they are still weathered. You're still going to find scrapes and bits of bobs all over the place. So I was actually a little bit sort of upset by the medical room. Okay, it wasn't too impressive at the start. And then we have our escape pods, which again are very important. Now, I do think the escape pods with the Polaris are actually placed really well. So we have some behind the bridge. We have these ones here, which are like opposite the hangar. 4 doors on the hangar. So everyone has the chance and the ability to flee with their lives. I think where these have been spaced is actually very cleverly thought out. We do also have turret access and things of that nature, clearly marked with red lights around them to help you identify that you might be getting into combat. I think those sort of features are really well thought out. Now we come to the crew dining area, rest room, mess hall area of the ship. This is actually pretty good. I didn't have too many complaints with this. There's enough for 12 people eating at a time, crew 24, so you know, if you're on rotation or whatever. It is fairly detailed in here. They've added some nice nuances to it as well. We have a TV playing my favourite TV show. It's called Flashing Logo. Season 1 was a little bit meh. Season 2 is awesome. So if you haven't seen Flashing Logo Season 2, definitely go watch it. It's amazing, right? There's this twist at the end. You'll never get it. It's incredible. Anyway, so we do have some decent sort of well thought out, well, the crew are going to want to chill, you know, and I hope they do implement something to watch. Like on Cyberpunk, when you're in the elevators, they have those mini TV shows and stuff like that. They definitely want to do that. I think that should be a thing for all the ships, not just the Polaris. Any ship that has a monitor should have something like that, some crazy little space thing going on in the background. So you can see the kitchenette in the background there, microwave, oven, all that sort of usual stuff that we find in some of the other ships, but not too bland, but it has a bit more colour than some of the other rooms, right, with the blue trim, and at least the seats are leather and the stitching looks really nice on them. There's also a chess table. Now, I did sit down and play it. It was a little bit clunky, because of course it was. There's no secret door like the MSR, the Star Runner, so don't expect to find a secret drugs running passage. Or unless I didn't move the Queen to the right area, who knows, but I didn't find one. So there's some nice touches in the dining area of the ship. It's quietly comfortable, isn't it? I think it's not a horrible place to spend a lot of time if you're on your time off as a crew member and you've been dismissed for duty and you want to go play some chess and watch some space TV, especially Flashing Logo. I can't recommend it enough. It's brilliant. Very roomy in here, and I think that's important for a sense of space, right? People like their personal space. I think if the ship was too crowded, it would soon get very tedious. How many times have you been in one of the elevators at your home station of choice and been hit marked by someone getting in the elevator? It gets annoying super quick. So yeah, it's not too bad in the mess hall. Then we come to the living quarters, and this is the only sign of creature comfort I could find, really, is some plants. That's it, you know. That sort of made it a little bit more homely in a sense. And I know it's a military ship, and it's like trying to drive a tank and taking all your goodies with you, you know, your PC, for example. It's not what it's for, but I do kind of draw my attention to detail to that, because these are nice touches that add to immersion. I think immersion is what keeps people playing certain games, right? I think it's very important, and as a sci-fi fan, I keep an eye out for these little things. Now, the corridor, again, you might be thinking, why have I recorded the corridor? Because I think it's very impressive how they've engineered the shape of this corridor into this ship, right? Very funky, very reminiscent of some Zeus angles, let's be honest. Now, the living quarters are very, very tight, so I apologise for the camera angle. It was the best I could do. They're very, very tight. You see double bunks. Underneath these bunks, there are monitors for the crew to watch. Could not get the camera to rotate the way I wanted it to. There is an ensuite as well and a little seating area. But there are some details in there that you might have missed, like the stitching on the seats. You know, the flooring around the ship is fantastic. There's little stickers here and there. But again, very, very bland. Now, I know that some areas of the ship are designed so that you can put your flare on to bring a bit of personality to it. But again, I just think there's some basic sort of lived-in things, like let's have some lockers open with, like, some of the other ships have shaving foam and razors, but on this there's nothing. There's no sense of weathering. There's no sense of it being lived in, and I kind of feel it has an effect on the immersion. Okay, so we just saw multiple turret entry points. We have another turret seat here. Red lighting for two reasons. One, it's to help your eyes adjust, which takes 30 minutes. So unless you're sat in there for 30 minutes or longer, it's irrelevant. But it does kind of add to that combat vibe. Next up then, Captain's Quarters. Now, we had quite a lot of arguments on my last Polaris video. It's an XO's quarters. No, it's a Captain's Quarters. No, it's an XO. You know, turns out it's just a Captain's Quarters. And again, very, very bland in here. Not captainly at all. Now, there is a lot of shelving here, you can see, and I strongly suspect that is for your personal flair to bring a bit of life to what is otherwise a very whitewashed sort of feeling within the captain's quarters. I am a little bit disappointed with the lack of monitors that the captain has. Okay, so he's got two built into his desk here, but none on the actual, like, upright like you would with your home PC. He does get his own ensuite with a storage locker, etc. You know, so but he just doesn't feel like a captain's quarters to me. It's not. Someone operating this ship within the military is going to be pretty high up, rank-wise, in my opinion. Not necessarily a civilian variant, okay? Because it's not the same, obviously, but I just kind of feel like, where's that sort of, you walk into an officer's room and you feel like you're a subordinate, you know? It doesn't have that sort of feeling to it. Like I said here, he's got two screens on the desk, but that's it. Where's, like, the navigation monitor on his desk so we can quickly just look and see where he is on the star map and then make adjustments through voice comms or whatever. You know, there's little things like that I feel are missing and do not add to the character of what this ship could be. Now, I'm certain they will do, as the game progresses, more things are going to be added. Certainly. This can't be the end, as far as I'm concerned. I think there would be more here. As you can see, it's a sofa, so you can have your meetings or discipline people where need to. A little weapons rack in case you get boarded. You can snatch a weapon and go murder people if that's your last recourse. So there's a lot going for the design of the ship internally. It just doesn't feel... It feels too clinical, too not lived in, too... I don't know. It's hard to put my finger on it. I think there are other interiors out there which shine a little bit better. That's my humble opinion. You may disagree. You might like the clinical sort of minimalistic look, because I do think in some areas it does work well. Like here, for example, this is the armory, and I do think that this should be minimalistic. Why? Because when there's weapons, magazines and armor suits involved, you don't want crap everywhere when people are rushing to get weapons. That is the last thing you want. So for having that minimalistic look within somewhere like an armory is very important. You don't want people tripping up and accidentally discharging their weapons into each other, for example, because there's crap all over the floor. So for here, I would completely understand why it's fairly minimalistic, and it works for an armory. It's designed and supposed to feel empty and clean and methodical, because this is where a lot of ammunition and weapons, and inevitably where accidents could happen, you know, safety first. So for this sort of room, I think it works well, and it works as intended, but there are some areas of the ship that are a little bit disappointing. But as you can see, there's multiple weapon racks, multiple suit lockers, easily accessible, nice wide corridors, because you're not just going to have one armourer, you know, and then a queue of people waiting to get their weapons out. I think you'd want at least 2 armourers in here, one for the suits, one for dishing out weapons, signing them out, etc. If you were to do that with your org or group of friends. Then we make our way to the bridge. Again, I think the escape pods here are really well placed. I think having them directly behind the bridge, which in my opinion is probably the most vulnerable part of the ship at the moment, because the cockpit overhangs. You know, if you lose those shields at the front, then you've just got bulletproof glass, I'm assuming, protecting you. Or some other space age variant of it. So having escape pods at the front is important, easy to get to, and let's be honest, I think most of the time you're going to have a lot of people in the bridge, because you're not going to be in combat all the time, right? You're going to be traversing together, plotting courses, finding jump points, collecting commodities, harassing people, murdering people for no reason, you know, whatever it might be. The majority of your time, I would have thought, would be spent in the bridge, and having the escape pods directly behind it, easy to get to, clearly marked. There's no negatives to that, in my opinion. And the fact that it has distinctive lighting as well is a little touch that adds to that immersion. So this part of the ship, yeah, completely makes sense, right? It's a very sort of hit and miss interior for me personally, if I'm being brutally honest. Then we come to the bridge itself, and at the back we have our nav table. So this is the telltale indicator for me that there's probably more stuff to come. Now this room itself looks like it should belong here. Do you know what I mean? With the monitors, the nav table itself, the little terminal there. This feels busy. This feels lived in. This feels like a working environment where space things are going to happen. So obviously you're going to be using this nav table to plot courses, find threats, resources, all of that really cool stuff that we're still waiting to get, and we're slowly getting there. We've got a year of bug fixing, which I think is amazing. I'll quite happily wait until the game is in a much better state before they start adding this stuff in. You know, we've waited long enough. 1 more year isn't going to kill us. Let's get the game playable. But this is the telltale indicator for me, because clearly this isn't working yet, right? So they'll have to implement that, which means the ship is more than likely going to have another pass internally, maybe sneakily. And I'm hoping they add a bit more flavour to the ship, because it's very devoid of that lived-in feeling that I'm searching for with these ships. But if you don't mind it, it's a non-issue, obviously. But for me, I want the full package. I want the immersion. I want screens everywhere. I want lights blinking at me. I want different coloured lights for different areas of the ship. And I think this is probably one of the better areas of the top deck. Very roomy. There's enough room here for multiple people to get round, plan your, you know, attack runs possibly. Keep an eye on the fleet. There's a lot that needs to happen with the nav table. Even the Carrack has one. Again, which adds to that space immersion that we're all playing this game for, right? Bridge itself, 5 seats. Some engineer stations, remote turret stations, captain, pilot and co-pilot seat. Again, not too bad in here. A few more monitors, and that's what I was referring to in the captain's quarters, these sort of monitors. I was expecting a few of these in the captain's quarters, so that if he was at his desk, he could look up, you know, see where he is in the verse, for example, what system, what planet, and how far they are, blah, blah, blah. So they missed a beat there. Now, the original concept images of the bridge, they had some really flashy monitors, and these seats actually were accompanied by desks, and that was something I picked up on. I think these seats need desks. Not necessarily big ones, but it just feels empty. You look at the size of this bridge, right? Some sort of desk, maybe. I know we have the cool MFD system that comes across the seats and they rotate, sure. But it's still a little bit empty, isn't it, for the size of the bridge, with just 5 seats sat there. Again, it's not really a criticism. It's more of a sort of one of those things that I noticed. To give it a bit more life, in my opinion. You know, just a desk with those monitors on top. Make it feel like an actual station, a combat station, I would have preferred, if I'm being honest. But again, I am nitpicking. I just think there's room for improvement, to be honest with you. We know the externals are incredible, And there are some areas of this ship that are absolutely superb internally, and we'll definitely talk about that when we get to them. So, captain's seat then is actually pretty cool. I do like those sort of mini MFDs and all the buttons you get to press, and yeah, very comfortable seat. Probably more comfortable than the one you got in your office, to be honest with you. So there are details here if you look close enough. I mean, these buttons, for example, you know you want to push them. I want to push them. That's obviously some sort of really cool touch screen that I want to get my fingerprints all over and just, you know, get it all khaki, because, you know, that's the world of touchscreens, unfortunately. But yeah, bridge, very big. Nav table, very important. Look forward to seeing that in operation. Right, that then brings us to the brig, because we're going sort of full circle. Think of the ship layout as a circle. That's probably the best way to describe it. The brig, again, this is where you're going to sling all the naughty people. So whether that's crew, you know, getting drunk, messing up stuff, disobeying orders, or captured pirates, or maybe you are a pirate and you've got hostages, this is where you will be putting them. There are some cool things I noticed in here, but again, like the med room, very boring. Very boring. I mean, the two screens on the security desk that's an epic touch. 2 cameras focusing on the prisoners. I think that's a very, very cool touch. But other than that, I mean, there's nothing in here. You know, where are the, like, I don't know, handcuffs? Where are the jailer's keys? Where are the, I don't know, confiscated weapons or evidence lockers or something like that? You know, where's that sense of this is a brig? You know, there should be that sort of stuff. Where's all the paperwork all over the desk? That sort of stuff, right? That's kind of what I was looking for. Now, for the prisoner itself, it shouldn't be luxurious at all. You're in there for a reason. You've been very, very naughty, and now you have to stare at this silver toilet. Okay? At least it's clean. Let's put it that way. And there's a nice shiny sink there as well. But yeah, you shouldn't have any comforts in there. You'll note that the padding next to the bed is there, just in case the ship goes into sort of some aggressive G maneuvers. But overall, yeah, very boring, very tedious. Would not want to be locked in here for a long time, that's for sure. Just staring, taunting the guard. You could easily just walk out, leave you there. It's no skin off his nose, right? So, yeah, this area of the ship should be miserable. But again, there's some few little immersion things I think they've missed for the brig. Personally, that's my sort of consensus on it. Right. Let's then get down to the lower deck and start talking about the really, really cool stuff where a lot of attention to detail has been put. So we'll start with the engineering, which is kind of a weird level, to be honest, because it's just this one area here with the gravity ball, which again always throws me off because I always think they should be much bigger for a ship this size, and it's tiny. It's tiny. But yeah. It's a weird sort of area of the ship because to get to the actual engineering bay, you have to go through cargo. So it's kind of a little bit misleading, I have to admit. But this is certainly where the ship elevates itself from some of the dullness that was found upstairs, right? Because we really do get some immersive lighting in here, which I always enjoy. Really adds to that sci-fi experience, in my opinion, of how a spaceship would be if I was to ever own one in the future. You know, that's the kind of thing. Red lights. You can see there's a jump drive module here as well. But now we're starting to get the flavour of the Polaris and its potential coming through. And then I found this. I have absolutely no idea what this is. Absolutely, I haven't got a clue what this is, but it has its own terminal. So if you know, please let me know in the comments. But when I saw this and the intricate detail of it, okay, and I took a closer look, does that not look like that is responsible for creating Terminators? In some way, this is responsible for creating Terminators. I'm convinced of that. Absolutely, this is Skynet. This is what it is, 100%. That's the Skynet module, we'll call that. But if you look at this engineering, see, this is what I'm talking about. Now we're starting to get the immersion with the lighting, the console, the monitors. You know, that big bright light in the top right corner. What's that there for? Who knows? But it looks cool. You know, little details like that that are in the bottom deck are missing from the top deck in some of those rooms. But it is awesome down here. Really enjoy it. Like, for example, this shot, this is the kind of thing I was looking for upstairs. Now, it's not all bad upstairs, okay? I think the only things I would change would be the med bay, the brig. Maybe the bridge could use some slight improvements. The living quarters, again, a little bit dull. That's it, really. Down here is an absolute treat because it does give you that sense of sci-fi, which is important. Now, the monitors, although they don't show any particularly relevant information at the moment, I do hope that they implement some changes to that so it does show actual components in work. I think they mentioned that many years ago. It's hard to keep track because they do mention quite a lot of things, to be honest. Then we get to probably my favourite room in the entire vessel, and that is the engine room itself. In here is absolutely exquisite for detail, immersion, and a sense of power and just what you're dealing with, right? So we have, I don't know what that is, but it's in water. So obviously it needs cooling. And the way the water flows, and it's got the 4 lights highlighting some sort of power core, maybe, who knows. Then you've got all the pipes, the cables dripping in and around the water. It's amazing in here. Several terminals, the nice steel grate floor, you know, which you would expect from the industrial side of any factory or industrial ship. So you know it's heavy duty in here. So there's attention to detail been put into this room, which I think is absolutely superb. The lighting, I've already said, you know. Then we have this huge component at the back here which lives, has its own animations, looks absolutely incredible in here. By far and away, this is the best room on the Polaris in my humble opinion. I just think it looks amazing. The work they've done in here sells it, you know, really sells what they are capable of doing. I think it's absolutely amazing. Even the valves, no idea what these do, of course, but look at them. They didn't have to do that. They could have been static, but nope, they're breathing, they're doing things. And then we have this contraption. Again, my eye gets drawn to these sort of attention to detail inputs because it's too easy to just run past and not notice. But once you spot them, it's easier to admire a ship when you find the detail that's been put into it. And I think this is awesome. Counter-rotating things that are doing space things to help you in space. So that's good. Just amazing. Absolutely amazing in here. Even the reflection from the water seems to be echoing around this particular shot, right? So those kind of details I am all for. This is just such a great place to be. I would have no problems whatsoever being a full-time engineer on a Polaris, running around, changing fuses, fixing components. But, you know, chief engineer, very nice place to be, I think. Definitely one of the best areas of the ship. It's so well done. And it seems to be supported from the ceiling as well. All the pipes running through it and into it. And then you've got that water system at the bottom, cooling components. And yeah, really cool. When the resource management eventually comes, it'll be very interesting to see just what gets affected for the Polaris and its engine room. Because, yeah, a lot to look forward to, I think, with the resource management. Right. Make our way through. That brings us to cargo. Now, SVU isn't massive. It's more than enough for a combat ship, I think. There are some, as I said with the doors before, are a little bit tricky and annoying to make sure you get access to without sort of causing problems for your landing area. 2 elevators, tractor beam, and some other cool stuff in here. Not really a lot to say about it. It functions as a cargo area, you know. It's nicely lit, which I think is important. I think there are some other cargo areas on some ships which could learn a lot from the lighting in this one, that maybe they need a rework or another pass, I think. The Polaris cargo area is well lit, and it should be, because if you're moving heavy boxes and whatnot, you need to see what you're doing. That's a given, right? So I've got no real complaints because it is supposed to be just a cargo area. Very spacious, plenty of room to move around. There's elevators that move to and fro. You have the 2 cargo doors that open at a horrible angle, but it is what it is, and that's just the way the ship is designed. We have the nice bright lights around the cargo doors, which I think add to that little touches like that, really bring something to life, and I appreciate it, even though it's just a cargo area. So pretty simple in its design. Then that brings us to the torpedoes. Now let's talk about the torpedoes. Yes, they do a ridiculous amount of DPS. They are extremely powerful. The problem is they don't hit things at the moment. I've been saying for a while in my previous videos, I just think countermeasures are far too strong. I think torpedoes and missiles just get flared off like they're nothing. The countermeasures are too strong. So how would CIG address that? I guess make the missiles more expensive, but make them more lethal. I.e., if you fire them, you know you're going to hit. You have a higher chance of hitting, maybe. But make them expensive so you have to think about if you want to use them. Do you know what I mean? That's just one thought that pops into my mind. There are probably many other better ways of getting around it. But as you can see here, 28 of them, size 10, ready to go on a rotate system. Reloading them by hand, I can imagine is going to be a huge pain in the ass. There is a dedicated elevator to get the torps up in there, so we'll cover that when we come to the tour. On from the torpedoes, we come to the torpedo firing station. Again, this is an area of the ship that a lot of people didn't believe me when I said, no, you can't fire the torpedoes from the pilot seat. And I got a little shit comments. Yes, you can. That's ridiculous. Well, no, you can't. And this is living proof. And having a dedicated weapons officer with his own turret makes sense. That's the direction SIG wanted to go, to encourage the multi-crew. I don't really see it being an issue. You could fly this ship with 2 players, one flying and one shooting. You would have some success when the torps work. But again, it's a very immersive area of the ship with the lighting and the terminals. So, I guess a thumbs up from me. Okay, now it's time to physically walk around the ship, point out some extra details. I like to do this because it does give a whopping sense of scale. We're in Pyro. This is freshly recorded from when I've actually been able to play, and you really do get a sense of just how gigantic this ship is. And yeah, can't wait for the Kraken to arrive, because that's going to be an absolute monstrosity to walk around that thing on the ground. Anyway, here we are at the rear of the mighty Polaris, and you can clearly see that I've done some excellent parking. And what I've done is managed to park a super heavy spaceship on a tree, which has then made it tilt. And at first I thought, oh, bollocks, I'm going to have to move the ship. But then I noticed something really cool that I want to sort of show just how much detail has actually gone into the exterior of the ship. So as it teeters on the strongest tree in the world ever, it's actually resting on a PDC, I think. Yeah, nicely balanced. So that shows you that the weight distribution of the Polaris is actually pretty good. Not a bad shot there. So we'll make our way underneath the ship so we can really get a sense of scale by doing so. And you will note that we have our chaff and flare dispenser and our underbay turret, rear turret here, remote turret, nicely snuggled in there. Obviously, for shooting down right and down left and just straight down, it's not a problem. And really, you don't suffer too much because there's plenty of turrets at the top that sort of rectify that poor arc of fire for that particular turret. But as we carefully make sure we don't get squashed by this thing, I wanted to show you the internals of the landing gear. So we'll move around Because this is something they did not have to do whatsoever, because who looks in gear wells? Well, I do. Like I said, attention to detail is everything, and you can actually see the suspension arms working. Right? Now, for a lot of people, they don't care. But for me, I'm like, they actually thought of that. That's really cool. I appreciate people that put, attention to detail into their work, and that for me was just that's awesome, really impressive. And when you zoom in, it's even more impressive because there's more details to be found: lights, switches, tubing, wires, pipes. It's got the works. So accidentally parking on top of a tree turned out to be a very pleasant treat, I think. We'll keep making our way forward. Now, I do have some gripes with how you get in and out the ship. As you can see, there's some really weird sort of antenna. I think they are. Not entirely sure what they do, but they look cool, so they get the thumbs up from me. Then we have our 3 thrusters. So the ship obviously has a lot of thrusters, and it needs them. Intakes as well. All nicely labelled, flashing green light. Then we have a PDC here. I'm terrified this ship is going to crush me. Not going to lie, but we'll soldier on. So we have our point defense cannon. Some more thrusters. Some sort of gills, probably intakes here. Oh, almost broke my neck. Stop it. Stop it. Thank you. Yeah, it's just incredible, isn't it? It really is a sight to behold when you're walking in and around this ship. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. Now, going back to my gripes, I think the entry points of the ship are freaking annoying because it's so tall. Trying to get access to them is a pain in the ass. And again, this animation is only slightly moving, not as much as the rear ones, but, the whole thing's teetering on the strongest tree in the world. But yeah, very impressive. Even some of the internals are on display here. Another PDC tucked away. Some cooling features. Some more antenna, signal receivers, radio wave, transponder things. It's all super cool. Again, the ship has plenty of lighting. So here we have one of the external ramps. I hate how you have to get in and out of these. I think CIG did say that they're going to introduce some sort of like key fob or a remote you can just pick up, press open all, and all the doors are open, so you don't have to piss around with this press F nonsense, which I hate, to be honest with you. You don't need it on everything. For things you can pick up, sure. For things like elevators and opening doors, I prefer the old way of just zooming in and pressing F, So here we have one of the turrets with the bespoke size 6s, ballistic. They do slap, of course they do. But yeah, detail is pretty awesome, And I can't wait to get in Pyro properly and just go get lost, right? That's my goal. Not necessarily just go do missions, just go do space things and see what happens. Maybe rock mining, be awesome. Anyway, I get distracted so easily from my own thoughts, it's not even funny. As you can see, it is a Goliath of a ship. It really is. And the exterior, it's just so well done. So well done. With all the lights, the grills, the turrets, poised and ready to slap people. It's great. It's absolutely great. It's an absolute monster. Like I said, I'm just not sure about that cockpit extending as far out as it does. I think that's just me nitpicking. I think if it was to be shorter, I think I'd go, I don't like that. I think it's just me trying to find fault with the exterior rather than it actually being a problem. I mean, it's not a problem, but I'm just trying to make it one. Trying to find flaws in the ship's exterior, to be honest with you. I can't really find that many. It's so well done. It really is. Just an absolute weapon of a ship. Massive landing gear, tricycle landing gear. Like I said earlier, I do appreciate that they are slightly taller so you can land properly. But this is what I'm talking about here. I hate this. Looking at the floor to get in. And it's just so annoying. This stupid little button. give me a key fob. That can't take... You can't build ships to this quality and tell me you can't design a key fob. You know, a car key, for example. Just give me that, please. Elevators down. Lovely jubbly. Doors open. Granted, it's clipped into the ground a little bit, but we'll gloss over that. Now it's time to climb aboard this wonderful, wonderful ship. And we'll pick out some of the details that I found on board that you may have missed, or it's just me being a nerd, really. So if you made it this far, well done, because we're about to go full nerd, full send on the nerd. Okay, so I got disconnected, so I had to come back, and that was the reason for that. But we are going to start in probably the best room in the ship by a long shot. Engineering is glorious in here. Absolutely love. I mean, even simple things, how lighting penetrates through the fan ducts and projects itself onto the steel grating on the floor. I mean, that image right there could make a wonderful screensaver, couldn't it? Let's be honest. So, yeah, really cool. Really cool. Love that they added water in here. That has its own sort of rippling effect, right? With the sort of elegance of the reflection from the water dancing around all the pipes and the steel wires and the components. And yeah, this is definitely just the best area of the ship. It's just so well done. It's amazing. So cool. I could look at that all day. They didn't have to do that at all. They could have left the water out and you would have been none the wiser. They went, you know what would be really cool? What? Space water. And you're like, hell yeah, dude. Throw it in. And here we are. And I'm glad they did, because it looks incredible. Again, the immersion from the light just penetrating through the mist of the engine room. It's fantastic. Look at it. Kind of looks like Wall-E, doesn't it? Wall-E. Anyway, again, get distracted by my own thoughts. We'll make our way up. So this is actually probably a very important area of the ship. You're going to want some competent people in here, certainly operating these terminals. And again, the way this component, engine, power plant, whatever it is, extreme heat, RSI scribed into the aluminium or steel exhaust thing here. It's just incredible. Valves that animate. Yeah. This is why I play this game. This is why the future of this game gets me excited, right? Because it can offer so much when it works. When it works, when you have those blissful patches and everything's just awesome, then this game is awesome. These screens then. So I've noted they seem to be quite the same throughout the ship. Like there's no sort of independent per room, if you know what I mean. They're all displaying the same info. I really hope, like I said, I hope they do a cyberpunk and have different images for the crew habitation, not habitation, the cookhouse. What's it called? I can't remember. Where you eat, where flashing logo is. That is something I want to see on these screens, right? I want to see the ability to manipulate them, see different data, not just flashing sort of placeholder stuff. Because I think even ships like the MISC Freelancers, the old school ones, have those sort of similar things, and it'd be nice if we could get these updated at some point. Engineering terminal coming soon. No doubt that will have something to do with resource management. It's just awesome in here. Again, look, the same generic screens. Potential to be had here. No idea what they're showing. It's measuring the seismographs of the polygons in the atmosphere in this particular location, in case you were wondering. That's what I'm going for. And we have another terminal here. It isn't on, so I'm guessing that will also coming soon, probably. So yeah, in terms of why it's the best room, I think it's just atmospheric, right? And they've captured it really well. I mean, this is another extraordinary piece of equipment that I'm not entirely sure what it does, but it doesn't matter. Because the rule of cool. Okay, so this room really is my favourite in the entire ship, and like I said, I would be quite happy to spend a lot of time in here just fixing stuff, running around like crazy, welding stuff here, tractor beaming stuff here, and this end of the engineering is no exception either. Look at it. Look at it. It's incredible. Absolutely amazing. A few little lights down there as well, highlighting that water. And then individual red lights, you know. I'm sure Terminators are created here. I'm telling you. They pop through this because this is hypnotic, you know. It's awesome. Absolutely incredible. So engineers really are going to have a good time down here, I think. If you're that sort of full-on space nerd like myself, I think you're going to have a good time. Because everyone wants to be their own captain. I'm not too fussed about it, to be honest. Right, so we'll make our way out. We're on one of two elevators in the cargo area. And they both lead up to the hangar. Then we have a ladder room, which is good, just in case elevators go down, power cut, maybe used to take severe damage, etc. But yeah, the cargo room, there's not really too much to talk about it. I do think it's lit well enough to do cargo operations in here. 500 plus SCU is probably more than enough for a ship of this size. It's not a cargo hauler, it's a combat vessel, so does have a tractor beam as well, which does operate. So let's hop on this. Power on, and then use. So tractor beam, definitely useful. It's going to help you, one, it's going to help you sling torpedoes up to the torpedo area of the ship. Two, it's going to help you manipulate cargo to and from other vessels that you're resupplying or distributing cargo to. Three, it eradicates the need for everyone to constantly have to, you know, run around with tractor beams. So pros for that. Definitely a pro having a tractor beam on the ship in the cargo area. Makes complete sense. Not on a guide rail though. Some of the other ships have guide rails, which we don't have yet, do we? I don't think we do. We probably do. I just can't remember. So yeah, having a tractor beam in the cargo completely makes sense. Makes life a lot easier. Always nice to see tractor beams on any ship that can have them, to be honest with you. Right, now let's talk about why these doors are a pain in the arse. So we'll go over and we'll open one up. Very slow, cool animation. Everyone likes a slow ramp. Even the pistons look amazing with that animation. Look, they've got weathering on. You see what I mean? There's like oil stains on those pistons. Detail that needs to be found elsewhere is on pistons. But it's a very slow ramp, and that's not a bad view at all, is it? Now, this is why these ramps are a problem. Because if you're trying to land on a cargo pad, you have to plan for it. Or any sort of landing pad. Or you have to park the ship adjacent to said landing pad so that you can get these ramps down. The ship's not parked on a tree, for example, wobbling all over the place. These are things you're going to have to consider when trying to get cargo on and off the ship, unless you're in space, of course. That's completely irrelevant. But for ground operations, planning needs to happen. Because as you can see here, if the ship wasn't parked on the strongest tree in the world ever, these rocks and trees would be issues, right? And when you got both of them open, you need double the space. So yeah, not particularly well suited for ground operations unless you have a hell of a lot of flat ground with nothing around it. But in this particular scenario, as you can see, we would have numerous issues trying to find a little bit of land that wasn't cluttered by boulders and or trees. So that's what makes landing the Polaris a little bit difficult, is in fact these cargo entry points. Now, you can't really complain too much because it's just the way the ship is built and it's the only way they can accommodate it, right? It's just one of those things that you have to look out for. Not ideal, but it's something you can work around with a little bit of preparation, I feel. We won't really see too much of an impact. Players are smart enough; they'll figure it out. It's just one of those things. I think I should point out that it's not all smooth sailing when it comes to operating cargo on board the Polaris. I mean, what supplies are you going to have really? Medical supplies, food, water, ammunition, spare utilities, you know, things of that nature. Not really commodity trading. Not at least if you're using it for its actual role. So there was an elevator there that takes us up to torpedo bay, so you can load torps onto that elevator. We have our fuses, numerous fuse boxes scattered around the ship, so engineers will need to get familiar with them. Then we have our torps on a rotation, like rotisserie system, which is actually a very clever way of saving space. I think does the Tally get those? Yes, the Retaliator does, but just not as posh. I feel these are a little bit more posh with the red lighting. So yeah, a lot of DPS for torpedoes, sure. I think missiles and countermeasures need to have a little rework and rethink on how they work. Either way, I think the player bank account is going to be affected, to be honest, when it comes to having these tweaked. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I'm only guessing at the moment. But yeah, very cool. A lot of firepower here. Probably the downside of having them here is they're very easy to steal. If you were to land, open up your cargo ramp, if you found some space, there's not really a lot you could do to stop someone stealing them. They are incredibly expensive, so that is maybe you would want some dedicated personnel down here security wise, just making sure that there wasn't any potential stowaways, for example. So here we have the elevator that will allow you to transfer torps in and out. Because if a player sneaked on here with an Argo Atlas, he'd easily be able to mech warrior these torpedoes straight out the side of the ship. Because it's something you want to think about. Especially, you know, large orgs, I expect they will have this sort of stuff ironed out, or at least they should do. These are all things you need to think about to get that sort of role-playing immersion going. Then we have a main elevator that is a hit and miss for me recently. Various panels here as we make our way to the sort of the front turret underneath the chin of the ship. Torpedo weapons officer station. This one, nada, nothing. So I'm assuming that's a coming soon terminal, otherwise why would it be there, sort of thing. So I think that would be a resource management. And then we have the actual used torpedo console. So once you hop on here, power on, use. This is where you kill everything from this turret, and you turn around, you can see those massive size 6s looking pretty cool. Yeah, so lock on, shoot, and then they get flared off or countermeasured at the moment, which is kind of annoying, but it is what it is. You have better luck trying to dumbfire in these torps, but the thing is, they're so expensive. Yeah, probably better off with a few friends just running the turrets, to be honest, because it's such a tanky ship. The only other threat you've got, really, is another fully crewed Polaris at the moment. So yeah, that's where you fire the torpedoes. They're very slow as well. Very slow torpedoes. I can't remember the meters per second off the top of my head, but I do remember thinking they are taking forever to get to that target. But they are pretty big. I think there are a lot of adjustments that are needed for torps and countermeasures in general, to be quite honest with you. Right, let's hop in the chin turret where we get to play with these big size 6 bad boys. So in we go, down we go, slide forward into the turret, MFDs pop out. That is all super freaking cool, that whole animation. Very lovely jubbly. As you can see, visibility isn't particularly brilliant. It's not terrible, it's not brilliant. So, where's the on button? I can't remember. Ah, there it is. You have to press it twice for some unknown reason, is what it is. So, 2 size 6s, not the fastest of fire rates. They do slap. They are quite powerful guns, let's not be honest. Yeah, so this is the turret when I was solo in Save Stanton that I was just pounding the Idris, and the Idris was just laughing at me, just like, yeah, you stop tickling me please, because I think the Idris is going to be an absolute monster as well. As you can see, the gun depression is absolutely fantastic, so if there's any light fighters that are daft enough to get too close to you and think they can fly under the nose of the ship, they're going to have a very big surprise. Well, two very big surprises in the size of size 6 shells going through the face of that light fighter. So very, very good gun depression. The turret speed is actually fairly respectable as well, which is kind of surprising because I was expecting these weapons to be heavy. Like, they look heavy, they feel heavy, but the turret moves super quick. Yeah, not lot too much to say about them. They are extremely powerful, especially when they connect. So we'll pop back up, rotate round. This is a great animation. I no longer have the fear of getting stuck in turrets. It used to be the biggest fear of mine because it happens so often, but it seems they've really got on top of that lately, which is great. So, torpedo tubes, labelled 1, 2, 3 and 4. And seeing them load in is pretty cool. Right, now we'll come to this elevator. And it worked first time. But you know what? We'll make our way right to the rear of the ship and go up that way, I think. So it's in a sort of universal pattern. So we'll just make our way through, back through cargo. Yeah, so it's really cleverly built, I think, internally. Like, the way CIG have incorporated the different shapes. And to be honest, I just wanted to walk through the engineering room again. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry I had to do it. It's always awesome walking through. I mean, look at it. Look at it. Fantastic. Fuse box. It's handy that there's one in engineering. I will say that. So we'll make our way through. The reason we'll do it really as well is because we want to walk around the sort of gravity generator area, and then we can take the elevator up to the hangar area and then begin looking at some more details. So we need to go up to the hangar and then do a U-turn and head straight down to the generator. Another terminal here with some different generic information. And it is another engineering console though. Makes sense. Makes sense. Good to see that the old-fashioned keyboard is still a thing 1,000 years in the future. And then this one, yeah. So hopefully we get to play around with these a little bit more and have different information, you know, screening to the ship. I had a thought then and it escaped me, but it was something to do with FPS combat and I can't remember what it was exactly. Right. We're going to the hangar as we're here, and as I said before, yeah, very, well, much bigger than originally planned. A lot of ships are going to fit in here, no problemo. But there are some things I think are missing from the hangar, which I think would have been a nice touch, unless I've missed. I mean, it's such a big ship. I'm sure I've missed something. So actually, before I get distracted, let's go this way. Swing a left and then stick to the original plan, because I get lost all the time. All the time. Even though there's a map in the top left, I know that. I still get lost. Right. No idea what this is. This is part of engineering. If you know, like I said, please tell me. But what is it? It looks awesome, whatever it is. And I'm convinced. Either T-1000's built here. I'm certain of it. Some sort of Terminator. You can imagine the electric when this thing is operating. Little lightning bolts bouncing off these metal shard square things at the back. These. Yeah? And then all of a sudden a portal appears and Arnold walks out. Get to the chopper. Alright, calm down. Then we have another fuse box. So I'm not sure what that thing is behind me, but I really like it because it's freaking cool. Some pipage. Nothing really too exciting here. Then we have the gravity ball, which, again, every single ship I go into, I say, that's too small for a ship of this size. And surely that is too small. I was expecting something massive. And I think the reason why that is, in the old concept images of the Idris. The Idris's gravity ball was freaking massive, huge compared to this. So I think that's always stuck in my mind, and that's why I always think that's too small. Here we have, I believe, jump drive. Yep. So kind of weird that's not in the engineering, but then I guess it makes sense that it's right next to the gravity gen. Maybe. Or maybe that's just where it should be, you know? I'm not entirely sure, but there's some other trim, you know, even some lighting here that doesn't really show anything. So no component bays here. Another fuse box, fire extinguisher, and another terminal. So there's plenty of terminals stretched. Oh, life support system. There's something to do with that. Yeah, terminals all over the place. I guess this is the chief engineering station, if I was to hazard a guess. Okay, we're now going to take a look around the top deck. Now, I did get disconnected, so I had to sort all that out. So apologies for the sudden jolt. But we're back on the top deck, and we're going to go take a look at all the rooms, features, little details that I could find. I did find this, and at first I thought, is that a blade component error? Possibly. Then I noticed the keypad, so I have no idea what they're for. I just like the shape of the corridors. You know, they're very unique in the way that they lean, and they've incorporated sort of random components. O2, CO2 intake, O2 oxygen dispenser, then we have some vents and big wide corridors for those FPS moments. So it kind of makes sense. And it's pretty clever how they've managed to manipulate these shapes into the ship, right? I do appreciate that. The classic steam vent, which I think is awesome. Little things like that help with the immersion, in my opinion. I always admire the steam vents because I am such a dork geek. Right, let's talk about this room then. So we have our med beds, okay? 4 of them. Then we have, I guess, Chief Medical Officer. Now, unlike the brig, these don't seem to be working for me at the moment. So, not quite as good as flashing logo. Like I said, Season 2 is absolutely fantastic. We do have a small thing for medpens even, sorry. A few shelves for the Chief Medical Officer, but, you know, there's really not a lot of stuff in here that makes me feel like this is a hospital / clinic medical facility. It's a desk with 2 monitors, you know, there's not even a box of tissues, you know, or bandages. Where are the syringes? Where's the medical locker? With special medications locked away. Sure, you might not be able to use them. Now I understand that the room is, you know, quite tight. They had to work to very stringent sort of scales, I imagine, if that's the correct term. I know it's not, but I can't think of the right words at the moment. But there's no sort of lived-in feeling in here. Like, where's the blood stains, you know? Or operating table. Where's an operating table? Where's the surgeon's table with his tools? Things like that, you know, little things that aren't in here that should be in here, in my opinion. This room is a letdown. Personally, for me, I think it needs more. I think it needs more character, more flavour, more disgusting fluids all over the place. You know, it's a military ship. If you get bored in an attack, surely there's going to be stains or whatever all over the place. I'm not saying it has to be immaculate, but it should be lived in. So while we're here, I am going to snatch a free drink because it's such a huge ship. So we'll get replenished and then we'll be on our merry way. Obviously, you can respawn here if you so choose, which obviously is very, very good in any ship. Medbeds are the way. The Ironclad, I wish had one, but you can't always have what you want. That's life, unfortunately. So yeah, the medical facility then. Drab, clinical, very, very boring. Probably the most disappointing room in the ship. I mean, the brig, you understand why it's boring. It's not supposed to be entertaining in any way whatsoever. But, well, you could argue neither's medical, but I expected a bit more. And I think that was, the Carrack was a work of art, right? So, there's that. So we have some fuse boxes. Then we have a turret here. So let's jump in this bad boy. I'm going to show this because the animation's pretty cool. Okay. So we in, pivot round, then we go down. And then this turret gets its own freaking doors. How cool is that? So let's power this on. Okay, there we go. All the firepower in the world, and it has its own enclosure. These port and starboard side turrets are pretty cool. Laser repeaters, and the actual rotation of this turret and the gun depression are absolutely superb. Obviously looking up is a little bit tricky, but not as bad as you think, because yeah. And what I really like is the entire turret operator moves with the guns, so you can see the seat there as I move, which is, you know, that's pretty cool. Pretty cool indeed. A lot of firepower on this ship. Again, just one of those details they didn't have to do. This just could have been an exposed turret, just like the Hammerhead, but nope, they gave it its own operating doors with a flashing amber light, and yeah, very nice, very nice. Pretty decent MFDs as well. And again, the depression and everything is really, really cool. So let's get out. Yeah, that's cool. 10 out of 10. Very cool. Okay, so we'll make our way through the rest of the ship then. And just to show you, we do have access to auxiliary lighting. Very sort of ambient and calming. Right? Everyone's stood down for the weekend. And then, oh no, shit yourself stations and flashing red. Which is also pretty cool, because that means any crew member can access that. And then the rest of the entire ship is then alerted. Uh-oh, there's a problem. So let's make our way down to one of the airlocks here. So this is going to allow us for ship to ship and ship to station, space station docking. Very useful. Open. Thank you. So yeah, having airlocks is always a huge plus for any ship. It just makes life a little bit easier rather than having to land all the time. Okay, so let's continue then our journey through this ship. So here we have the, I believe this is the ladder access down to cargo? Yes, down to the cargo ramp. That's the one we showed you earlier. And then this is, as we open this, the mess hall. So flashing logo. It's only season 1, not worth watching it. Season 2, definitely brilliant. Probably enough room there for, you know, 3 people, maybe, if you don't mind being squashed. And there's some shelves there for some flair, I imagine. Another fuse box. Yeah, and 2 dining tables featuring seats for 12 people total between the 2 tables. And then drinks machine. You know, nothing fancy. A microwave. Now, I would have thought a ship this big, they would have a much bigger oven. So, but this is 1,000 years in the future. So who knows what ovens are like 1,000 years in the future. It's probably printed out food that's edible, which is a brilliant idea that I'm patenting and copyright. That's my idea. Keep your mitts off. It's going to make me millions. Yeah, it's pretty cool in here. It's not too drab and dreary. You know, it's cheerful. The lighting's okay. And then we do have the chessboard here. Again, I couldn't find a secret passage, but then I can't play chess, you see. It's far too complicated for me. If this space chess, we can pick up these. No. Come on. Yeah. No, doesn't want to. Okay, well I guess I'm just keeping this chess piece forever now. This is mine. Okay, that's... Come on. Okay, I officially quit. Let's pretend I was playing a computer and the computer beat me. Right. So there is stuff to do. It's not quite like a space ball table like found on the Carrack, which I think would be... Who wants to play chess after a hard day at work? On a spaceship? Nobody. There should be a space pool table. There's room. There's room. They could have manipulated these tables. They could have made room. But yeah, at least there's a splash of colour in here. It's not so whitewash grey. You know, it's a bit more colourful in the mess hall. So yeah, not really a massive issue. Again, just nitpicking really. Okay, adjacent the mess hall then. This will take us through to the living quarters corridor. Again, the only sign of sort of warmth on the ship is some plant life with the RSI logo. So we'll go into one of the crew quarters because they're all identical. So we have a seat, storage lockers for 2 people. Obviously the double bunk system. Very tight in here because of the way the ship is shaped, obviously. But we do get our own ensuite, kind of. And it's very clinical in here. And you can see I'm so beautiful that my face broke the mirror. And it's not showing my face because I'm that handsome. Isn't that wonderful? Yep, that's what I'm going with. And then we have here the pop-out toilet and toilet roll. So, and then of course it is a toilet and showers above us. So, you know what? That's not bad, is it, for being a lonely little crew member? You know, you can't complain. I'm so handsome. Little sink to brush my not face and my not teeth. So, yeah, very tight, but at least you haven't got to run across somewhere to use the toilet. It's just there, you know. I don't know how the hygiene mechanic's going to work. I really don't know. The hygiene mechanic will be very interesting. Okay, as we carry on, we'll make our way to the second airlock. If I can get it to work. So there is that opportunity to either dock both sides of the ship, which kind of makes sense because trying to navigate one end or the other can be a bit of a pain in the ass sometimes. So having 2 is probably a quality of life thing for the ship itself, just for that little bit of ease when operating these things, getting to and from space stations and or another ship. Maybe you're getting resupplied from another vessel, and you need to dock in space. You don't have to have that kerfuffle of navigating around to where the airlocks are, because we've got 2, so that makes life a little bit simpler. We have another turret here, same as the one we just came out of, so we will jump in this one as well, because I think this is another one with one of the cool doors. Yes, it is. So that's the second one on the other side with a different view, but it's pretty much the same stuff. It still looks pretty awesome in here. And I believe these are the quad turret size 3s. I don't think they're the size 4s. I kind of love how they hang out the side of the ship as well, right? It's really good. It's really good. I enjoy these turrets on the Polaris. They're really good. What did surprise me, though, like I said, is like the rotation speed and the responsiveness. And I know turrets have had a buff because they wanted them to be more potent and encourage more multi-crew gameplay, you know, and having a ship like this, which is designed, you know, with team play in mind, kind of makes sense. But I still wasn't expecting the turrets to be as responsive as they are, to be honest with you. So we'll hop out of this one. It's just so much firepower. And just think, the Idris is not far off. So hopefully the game is super stable for when that comes out and I can actually get the recording done in a timely manner instead of not being able to play for 2 months. Because I tell you, 2 months without SC is soul destroying. So we had that little cabinet there with a keypad. No idea what that's for. No idea. Escape pods, clearly labelled. And guess what? We can actually fit in these with ease. And there's the ejection handle. So they don't work yet. So that is another indication that this ship will have another pass. In fact, most ships with escape pods are going to have all the passes, because this will need to be a functioning mechanic in the game. So hopefully they can breathe a bit more life into this ship when they come back through here. So we'll continue round. And this brings us to the brig. Now, I've got no qualms with the brig being boring, okay? It's supposed to be punishment. It's not a hotel. It's supposed to be this way. But this is a nice feature. Unfortunately, it doesn't work in the medical bay. But this is where your chief security officer, I should say, use English, Stephen, should be sitting bored out of his nut, watching these two criminals, you know, banging on the doors, screaming for mercy, you know, pissing on the pillows, all that sort of disgusting stuff that prisoners do, you know, to paint a vivid image. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's kind of what that's for. And I have no qualms with this just being dull and boring. The only person I feel sorry for is the person that has to watch the criminals, the prisoners. Now, I did notice something cool. So there is a side storage thing here that allows you to feed the prisoner through the conveyor system, which is a nice touch. I would never in a million years have thought to do that, but they did, and I appreciate the attention to detail. I think that's really cool. So once you're in here, it's yeah, very boring. Even the glass is frosted, so you don't exactly get a very nice view either. But yeah, so the guard would put the food and drink through there, I suppose, and you'd come around this side, open that. See, it's like a little shutter door system for traversing food and drink to the prisoner, which is pretty cool. And when you realise that the food's disgusting, you can immediately throw up in this super clean toilet, which is nice. So yeah, very, very dull in here, and so it should be. Makes sense. You know, this isn't an entertainment park in here. You've been put here, or you've put someone here because they are a problem child. And how do you deal with problem childs? You throw him off a cliff. No, you put him in jail. Yeah, that's the solution. Let's go with that. So, yeah, no qualms for that for me. I think it makes complete and utter sense why this is a very dull and drab room. Okay, it's time to move on from this drab, boring, torturous area of the ship and move on. So obviously there's the hangar in the middle. Can't really miss it, but we'll go this way so we can do like a full circuit of the top deck. This brings us right back to where we started. So as you can see, once you get the hang of the layout, even with the map, it's pretty simplistic, right? It's pretty simplistic. I say that, but I get lost. It's what I do. It's my thing. So now we'll go check out the hangar, and there are a few things I think are really cool, and there are a few things I think that could have been handy. So let's make our way through the hangar then. Again, a multitude of ships are going to fit in here. I haven't even had a chance to try. I think I would like to take the Vulture and a Prospector, maybe. Somewhere around Pyro at the moment, because I haven't explored Pyro at all, and I would like to see what's what. So we have an elevator, which we know goes from cargo to hangar. Very useful. Simplistic stuff. Cool animations, little flashing light, all the bells and whistles. So that's a useful feature. There's two of them. Another one on this side as well. Now, where is the hangar door switch Rooney? I think it's down this end, actually. So we'll go down here. I'm pretty sure this is it here. Just some colour-coded doors. I know we have the map in the top left, but I'm so used to not having it, I don't actually pay attention to it that often, and sometimes it disappears, and then when it disappears, I do get lost. Right, so here's the lever. We'll open this up, just so you can see the animations. Really cool, especially as the sunlight creeps in, and then we have a wonderful view. Look at that. Can't remember the name of that moon at all. Don't ask me, I haven't been in Pyro long enough to tell you. At some point I will learn the name. All I know is that looks pretty cool. So yeah, intricate lighting around the hangar roof as well, which is pretty cool. But yeah, easily going to get ships in and out of there. Nice solid lever, and then we'll close it, and then we'll watch that slow animation. Now there is some points I think would have been nice to have in the hangar, like a tractor beam, just because I thought, well, maybe you don't have a combat ship, maybe you do have some sort, maybe you could, I mean, you could get a whole A in here, for example, so let's just use that in an example. But if you had some sort of cargo carrying ship, having a tractor beam in maybe one of the corners so that you could offload the cargo from your spacecraft of choice and then plonk it on the elevator and dump it down to cargo, then your crew and cargo could manipulate it and put it where it needs to be, sort of thing, rather than hand tractoring it. So I was thinking, like, if you had a tractor beam in this corner, not on the roof obviously, that, or maybe opposite ends of each corner, then a little thing like that I think would be super. Now it's not a massive gripe, is it? Because you can't get massive cargo haulers in here, but I do think something like that would have been super useful, right? I just think having a tractor beam in one of the corners just to help load it onto these elevators certainly would have helped. So yeah, right, well, we'll move on. Okay, now we are approaching the bridge of the ship. So there are a couple of turrets here. These are the roof mounted turrets, and very smooth animation again. These are packing some laser cannons. I've kind of gone off laser cannons lately. I'm not sure why. I just have. I just don't think they pack the punch that I would want them to. So as you can see, rotation is absolutely fine. Obviously, pointing down is a no-go, but elevation wise the turrets really don't struggle at all. And any ships that are trying to fight you that go underneath your ship, then obviously hopefully you got someone manning the other turrets. But yes, very cool, powerful turrets on this ship. I do like, I've noticed as well, and the keen-eyed amongst you has probably noticed before me, to be fair, but the MFDs in these turrets do seem to be taken directly from that flavour that will be found in the RSI Scorpiuses, whether it's the Antares or the original Scorpius. They share the same components MFD-wise, which makes sense because it's the same manufacturer. So elevation is epic on the top turrets, and that view of the rear of the ship is really impressive. Really impressive. So that is one of two top turrets that we've seen before in the outer shot. So we'll continue down and continue making our way towards the front, the business end of the ship, where all the important stuff happens. So there's the adjacent turret. We won't go into it to save time, because I know this video is already getting a little bit too long. We'll bring the map back up because it keeps getting disappeared. So we have the captain's quarters, which we'll head into now. Yes, the captain's quarters. Okay, so as I said, it's very meh in here, isn't it? In my opinion. Now there is shelving there for flares. Obviously, you can put there are opportunities to make this particular room your own as the captain, with flares and trinkets and things you've found. There's plenty of, and that is the purpose of these. I'm under no sort of illusion as to why they are here. I'm more sort of like, and these are interesting, by the way. I think these are like these important, like in nuclear submarines, when you have to put in two separate keys to fire the nukes, right? In the films, you see that as like a safety protocol. Both of you have to be. I'm wondering if that's the same thing, but not for nukes. But maybe it's map data or something. I'm not entirely sure what they're for, but they have a purpose because they've got an icon on them. So yeah, I mean, there's opportunities to make this room more flavoursome with your own personal touch, sure. But yeah, it just doesn't feel, captainy, does it? It doesn't feel like you're being flattered by the room for your rank. Unfortunately, that seat is supposed to rotate, and clearly that is bugged because I don't think it's meant to sit there like that. So that's a little bit unfortunate. third time a charm, maybe? I'm pretty certain the first time I sat in that did rotate, but if it's not going to work, it's not going to work. So that's a little bug that needs to get fixed. Then we have our subordinate sofa, as I've now dubbed it, so that if anyone was to come and take orders or for disciplinary hearings, you can have a face-to-face weapon rack for the 2 weapon racks. So you can snatch a weapon if you get boarded or something goes horrifically wrong, or maybe there is a mutiny. Someone's whistling on board, grab your gun, shoot him in the face. Mutiny solved. Personal storage, wardrobe with absolutely 0 lights in, bed, and of course his own ensuite, which is a little bit more roomy. And again, my beautiful, beautiful face, far too pretty to be shown in public. Yeah, but it's a functioning captain's quarters, isn't it? I just don't think it sort of offers up the grandeur of someone that is a captain of this ship ought to feel, if you know what I mean. There should be a little bit to it. There is room for flexibility, though, with the ability for flares, trinkets, things you found, trophies of that, things of that nature. So it's not all bad. I guess it is what you make of it, is the point I'm trying to make in a long-winded, roundabout kind of way, as we lay down. Now, interestingly, we don't get any sort of monitors like the crew do in theirs, but you don't really need it, do you? To be honest. You'll be far too busy with all the other tasks of running a ship of this nature. So, yeah, it's not terrible. It's not the best, is what I'm getting at. And I think once you did throw your own personal touches in, I really do think you could make it your own. But it really depends on what you find and how much flair you have and how much time and effort you want to spend putting all these things out, I guess. But overall, it's a functional captain's quarters. Maybe I'm expecting too much, but I think there are nicer captain quarters in other ships, if I'm being brutally honest. So yeah, it's this is where I'd like the monitors to be, right? 3 big monitors that you could look up from your desk and just know what's going on. I know we've got 2 in the desk, but I just think that little bit of extra space immersion, 3 MFDs above the desk would have been fine. Then we have a main elevator, and then opposite that we have the armory. Again, I expect this to be clean, tidy, operational at all times. No trip hazards, none of that, because when you're trying to get weapons, you don't want to be pissing around, tripping over shit to respond to a threat or prepare for a raid or things of that nature. So we can place our weapons in. Yeah. A lot of weapons in the armory. Not to mention, maybe you might actually have posted guards carrying weapons on the ship anyway. I don't see why you wouldn't, even if it was just a pistol. Just, for that little bit of immediate protection. Then we have the seats. Very nicely detailed seat, I have to admit. Stitching looks comfortable. Not sure what you'd be waiting for. Maybe you're waiting for the armourer to dish out your particular equipment for your certain mission. Suit locker, again, ample room to get in and out. At a very slanted angle, those suit lockers. Very clever how they got those in. And yeah, that is it. Apart from some light switches, not really too much to talk about regarding the armory. It is a very functional room. Now we are on the neck of the ship, and again, we have the escape pods, which I think are a great place to have these, because 99% of your time is probably going to be in the bridge. Unless you have a full crew and you are the captain, you don't have to worry about anything. You could just sit in your office and derelict duties as and when needed, I guess, and maybe take a stroll up to the bridge to check on progress, that sort of stuff. So now we'll open up into the bridge, where we come to that glorious nav table and an area of the ship that actually looks like it belongs. I think this is probably one of the better rooms on the top deck, if I'm honest. So I'm not sure what they're going to do to implement these nav tables. Carrick's got one. We've got one here. A few other ships have them, but I can't really think of it right now. I do kind of want to get immersed in this when this comes online. Plotting courses, planning strikes, raids, defensive strategies, coordinating with other orgs, raiding other orgs, going to space stations and torpedoing other orgs' space stations and stuff like that. I think it's going to be great fun. So we have the 2 blade computers, a massive storage component, which I imagine is probably not storage component, storage for a component. A fuse box again, that's probably life support or something like that, I would have thought. And then on this side, again, we have some monitors. Same thing. Opens up. A lot of blades because a lot of turrets. More storage for a component. And we come down and look back. It's impressive, right? It is. It is impressive, that area of the ship. And we come down to the bridge. And again, I just can't help but feel it's a little bit too roomy. I want it to be a bit more busy. These lights are annoying. The Terrapin has them. I don't think there should be any lights. There shouldn't be any lights pointing at anyone's face at any point in the cockpit. That's just my opinion. From the floor, fine, but not on the bridge looking down in people's faces. They're just annoying. So we'll get in this seat first. Now we do have access to sort of the basic stuff, right? So if I can find the on button. Power on. There we go. So this is the rear remote turret station. As you can see, this is where we get to see the wonderful tree that's propping up our ship. At least we're not weaving anymore. That's a win. Gun depression, absolutely fantastic. Points straight down, so possibly strafing people on the way through. It'd actually make a good anti-personnel turret as well, let's be honest. If you're parked on the ground and they're trying to approach you from the rear, at least you've got some protection if the station is operated and you've got someone keeping an eye out. It's not a bad turret. Okay, so that is the remote turret station. Obviously you have access to power shields and all that good stuff. So we'll hop out of this seat and we'll make our way across to yonder seat. Like so. Slides backwards, in we get. I just wish that in the concept images, these remote stations had really big monitors, and I just think that looked a little bit cooler. I mean, these are pretty sleek, and we do have a whole new MFD system, which is really nice. So I can't complain too much because it is a marked improvement of what we used to have. So here we can control the remote missile turret located at the very rear and top of the ship. This is pretty good for warding off any light fighters trying to maneuver around onto your 6. You know, at least you have to force them to take action to avoid these missiles, which is a plus. Rotation's pretty good. Obviously, there's no depression for such things, so we can only kill things above us, really, or at least horizontal. But yeah, as you can see, it's armed with 12 Ignite missiles. We rattle them off. It looks freaking awesome. So, yeah, better to have one than not, I suppose. It does give you a little bit of extra firepower towards the rear of the ship because the lower turret is, you know, really not going to ward off too many light fighters and things of that nature. If they're daft enough to get that close, then you can slap them with some missiles. So you can't really complain too much. So we'll hop out of this seat and we'll go straight to the co-pilot and jump in this one. And we'll do the captain's one last, I think, maybe. So, yeah, can operate the ship from here. Obviously, we have all the usual bells and whistles that we can find. Definitely, these take some inspiration from the Scorpius MFDs, which completely makes sense, as I said earlier. They are kind of cool. Engine on, flight ready, and all that good stuff can be found here. However, it doesn't seem to be working at the moment. There we go. A little bit slow, but we got there in the end. So we have everything that you should expect in 2 nice, clean MFDs for the co-pilot. Just gives the pilot nothing to worry about as much. If there's 2 of you running the ship, right, it does make things a little bit easier for the pilot. He's only got to concentrate on flying forward. Well, the co-pilot can manipulate shields, delegate power to other resources, etc. Very much like the captain. I keep forgetting there's like a little step there. And I do like the fact that you are surrounded by those missiles. Makes you feel safe, doesn't it? So that's a nice touch. Let's enter the captain's seat then. Now, I did have some problems with this earlier. I could not get this to switch on. So I'm hoping it does as it's told this time. And it doesn't appear to be. Come on. Obey my commands, Aurak. Come on. No, I think this is bugged, which is really annoying because I did get it to work the first time, but now there's nothing but problems. It seems like the captain's cursed because his chair doesn't turn in the desk and now he can't get access to... See that they flicker, a little flicker of life. Power on. Come on. Please. Please work. Please. Maybe I've got to put my key card in. See that? That's kind of... Ah, they're data cards. Okay. Mission info gets shared on them, and then you can take them to the captain's quarters just below the MFDs and share that information on that screen. That makes sense. That's what I'm guessing anyway. I'm not 100%, but I think that would make sense, no? Well, that doesn't work, unfortunately. But essentially, you have the same controls as what the pilot does. You know, that's exactly what it is. So you can change shields, power resources, and all that good stuff. So now we are in the pilot seat, and it's a little bit intrusive with the bridge sort of struts coming in to the left-hand side, but it's not overbearing. You're not really a combat ship, but I'm going to hop back out and see if I can jumpstart this captain's seat, because it is infuriating. It didn't work. Ah, there we go. It's just me being a plonker, Rodney. So, yeah, as I was saying, it's pretty much the same, right? You can have your scanning. We have some buttons down here. Communications, all that stuff that's shared on the other consoles. The captain can sort of delegate what he wants to do with what and when and where and who to contact and all that stuff. So, yeah. But I do think that's mission data card slots there. That would be my hypothesis on that, to be quite honest with you. And that would make sense. You take those little data cards out and then take them to the captain's quarters and then plug them into that big white screen we saw in there. And hey ho, you got yourself a secret mission board that no one else knows about. I think that kind of makes sense, right? Now, the view isn't too bad. It's kind of a nice empowering feel, I imagine, to have two people, two of your friends that you're commanding over, co-pilot and pilot. Right, so we'll jump back into the pilot seat now. And we're coming to the end of the ship tour, and then we've got one brief thing to cover, and then we are done. So, as to be expected, everything is where you expect it to be. All the buttons work. Difference being on this one, there's no open door configuration like on the co-pilot seat, where you could individually select which door you wish to open. But yeah, so as you can see here, all the bells and whistles, all really cool stuff. The view isn't too bad. It's just a little bit intrusive with the left strut, but we can have everything we want here. And this allows the pilot just to focus on flying, especially if the co-pilot is involved, or anyone else actually, because all those stations do the same thing. Then you're pretty much golden. So pretty simple in its design, but it works. It works. And like I said, you're not really dogfighting in this thing, are you? So visibility really isn't that bad at all. There's a few struts. It's not that intrusive. It's not a Connie. So, yeah. Pretty much that brings us to the end of the walk around of the massive Polaris. God help me when the BMM arrives. That's my favourite ship, so imagine how long that video is going to be. Anyway, let's take a look at the weapons and components to be found on board the RSI Polaris. Okay guys, we're almost at the end. We are almost there. So, if you made it this far, congratulations. Now, at the time of recording, this is what you will find weapon wise, component wise on the Polaris. Please be forewarned, the game is ever evolving, ever changing, constant balancing, so this is all preliminary in my eyes. So what you have here is not set in stone, but you can see the various turrets, what the weapons are. So we've got some cannons, we've got repeaters, we've got panthers, you know, they're the laser repeaters. So obviously we've got the missile launcher with the 12 ignite missiles. You can of course swap these out to something that you prefer. Then we have our PDCs, plenty of them as we scroll down, and our remote shore grip 2, that would be the tractor beam. So yes, all the weapons in the world are on this ship. And then we have our torpedoes, which are pumping out a ridiculous amount of damage, as you can see, and they're in batches of 7, and they are very, very expensive. So use them wisely, but also they don't quite work yet properly, which is kind of infuriating. So some fixes, I think, are needed to get this ship into tip-top shape. But I am looking forward to seeing one of these go toe-to-toe with an Idris. Even just from the outside as a spectator, I think it would be amazing. So for shields, we have the Glacis, and obviously a ridiculous amount of health pool. Like I said, I'd sat underneath the Idris for ages, just taking a beating, and it didn't do anything. Reclaim the power plant is what's being used. There are a few options there. Honestly, I didn't see any reason whatsoever to change any of these components, and I wouldn't want to because they're super duper expensive. So you're probably just better off running stock for now, to be honest, unless you've got all the money that you need to upgrade this ship in the limited capacity that you are able to. You know, it's one of those things. The quantum drive is the Erebus, but you do have some options here. So that would be down to your personal preference on what you would prefer. I've not run out of fuel in this thing. The Polaris just goes and goes and goes and goes. You've got enough to get around Pyro and probably back to Stanton and back to Pyro if you so choose. It's got tons of fuel. So there we go, guys. That was my video on the RSI Polaris. If you enjoyed the video, you know what buttons to press, and I will have more SC content en route to your location very soon. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care and cheers.